All of us have some time or the other had people doing injustice to us, hurting us with their words or actions, or we grew up in a difficult environment, an abusive environment, or somebody cheated us of our fair share in business, etc., took credit for our work, and was unjust in so many ways. Now, these occurrences are a part of this world, because this is the world of Maya. It is inhabited by souls who are Mayadhin, who are in Maya. It is not inhabited by perfect saints. Only to be expected that people are selfish, unkind, cruel, harsh, etc., etc. Now, when they behave with us like this, we become resentful. And we even justify our resentment. I have the right to feel bad because so-and-so did this with me. The only problem is that the resentment stays in us, in our heart. And it works like an acid. You keep acid even in an iron vessel, it will melt its way through. So resentment is the acid of the heart. That is why the saying that keeping resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other guy dies. So the only thing in this world that gets worse the more you nurture it is a grudge. Everything else, by nurturing, it will improve. But a grudge will only get worse and worse and worse. So we will have to learn to forgive and move ahead. Otherwise, we will get stuck in our life. As those two ex-prisoners of the Nazi concentration camp who met after 30 years started discussing with each other. One said, "Have you forgiven the Nazis as yet?" The second, "Yes," said, "I've taken it all out of my mind and moved ahead in my life." The first said, "I have not forgiven them so far." The second said, "In that case, they still have you in prison. Because you are shackled by those thoughts. Unforgiveness comes at a big price. Because when we harbor such thoughts, our body responds to it. In fact, the fight or flight response that gets triggered when there is a life threat to us. When our brain decides that there's a threat to life, it responds by secreting the epinephrine, the adrenaline, the cortisol hormones, and those make the liver secrete more glucose, so there's more energy in the blood, and the heart starts pounding more so that the blood is pushed into the muscles, all to enable you to do one of two things: either fight, or if the threat is too big, then take flight. So this fight or flight response, when subjected to heavy stressors, the same kind of response also takes place when we harbor resentment. The cortisol level increases, the epinephrine level increases, and hence resentment is connected medically. There's a correlation between it and so many medical problems. So we have to pay the price of harboring resentment. And hence, forgiveness is not a gift you are offering to the other. You forgive because it's a gift that you will benefit from. Whether the person did good, did bad, meant it, did it accidentally, why bother? You need to protect your mind and your heart. It's just like you would like to keep the living room of your house clean. And if your neighbor came to empty the garbage pail in your carpet, and you saw the dead cockroach and the dead mouse and the bugs, etc., running here and there, you would say, look, either clean up the mess or I'm calling 911. We are mindful that nobody brings garbage to our house. But what about our mind? Why do we allow garbage to come into our mind? Will it not have an impact on our mental state, our happiness, and even our bodily health? One teacher taught this to the students. She came to class with bags of potatoes and asked the students, for today, your assignment is to prepare your hate list. Who are the children or anybody in the world that you hate? So they all made a list. One's list had 3 people on it, one had 5, one had 15, one had 1 person. The teacher said, all right, no matter how many on your hate list, take those many potatoes from here and write the name of the person you hate on each potato and put the potatoes in your bag. When that was done, the teacher said, now, you are not to take these potatoes out. If I come to know, you will fail my subject. So no matter when you go home, when you come back from home to school, the potatoes must remain there, even when you are in the classroom. Initially, the extra weight was a little burdensome, but not so much. But after 3 days, the potatoes became soggy, they caught fungus, they started putrefying, they became rancid, and they were stinking. Even when they were in class, there would be a stench, but the stench would continue with them at home. And the students were fearful of taking out the potatoes lest the teacher come to know and fail them. On the 7th day, the teacher said, now you can throw them out of the window. They all heaved a sigh of relief. Thank God, thank God. The teacher said, did you enjoy the potatoes in the bag? Arey ma'am, it was so terrible. The smell was awful and the soggy potato was spoiling my books as well. The teacher said, likewise, if you keep hatred towards anyone, whether that person deserves forgiveness, doesn't deserve forgiveness, deserves to be hated, the point is the thoughts are in your own mind and they will hurt you terribly. That is why all the religious traditions of the world have emphasized this. If you wish to progress, you will need to master the art of forgiveness. In relationships, you will have to forgive again and again. Because the other person is not perfect. Your husband or your wife, they are only human beings. They will make mistakes. You have to learn how to forgive. One husband and wife had been fighting and fighting. Do husbands and wives fight? I don't know, I'm only guessing. This fight became so severe. First the voices, the decibels increased until they stopped speaking to each other. Now the matter was serious. The husband had to go for an early office appointment and he was a late riser. he knew his wife is an early riser and can wake him up, but how to tell his wife? So at night, she was asleep. He wrote a note to her, please wake me at 5 a.m. and went to sleep. He was a late sleeper. She woke up early at 4:30 as was her habit and saw the note. And she wrote a note back, it's 5 a.m., please wake up husband. The point is that you have to be willing to forgive the other. In fact, sometimes you have to forgive God as well. There was a saint in India, very famous saint, Ma Anandamai, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Very famous saint, Indira Gandhi used to go to her. She used to say, love means eternal forgiveness. Because God will also deliberately behave negatively with you just to test whether your love is pure or not. And if you don't have the ability to forgive, you will become upset. So forgiveness is an essential art to master. And how do we do it? Well, the first thing is, learn to take responsibility for your emotions. No matter how the other person behaved, your emotions is your responsibility. If you start blaming others for your emotions, that is one of the worst mistakes you can do. Why are you in a bad mood? You know that person did such and such thing, that is why I'm in a bad mood. Hey Baba, there's a gap between the external world and your thoughts. You realize the gap. If you don't realize the gap, then you become like a slot machine. The slot machine has its control outside. You put the coin and ting tong, ting tong, ting tong. So likewise, if you don't have the gap between your mind and the environment, the keys to your mind are outside. Somebody can make you feel happy, but somebody can make you feel sad as well. So we must accept responsibility for our emotions. And the second point then is to develop empathy. Empathy means to understand the other's emotions. That person has their own struggles, their own viewpoint, their own perspective. Why should we jump to conclusions? One little girl had 2 apples in her hand. When mummy came back from office and she saw the 2 apples, she said, "Beti, give me 1 apple." The girl bit one, then she bit the second. Then she gave the first one to mummy. Mummy said, "How selfish can you be? You had 2 apples. I asked for 1. You spoiled both of them." The girl started crying, "Mummy, I was just checking which is the sweeter one so I can give you the sweeter one." Now the girl had her own perspective. The mother jumped to conclusions. That is why when we are passing decisions on others, we don't realize that they may have their own perspective as well. So develop empathy for others. And the third is realize your own mistakes. It is not that we are perfect. We also have selfishness. We also have lack of empathy. Very often, the defects that we see in others also exist in our own self. I am reminded of that little boy and girl who were neighbors. And the boy had marbles while the girl had chocolates. The boy was a fast talker. He conned the girl and said, "Look, you see these sparkling round objects? I've got many of them. I'll give them to you and you give me these chocolates. So the girl said, how many? He said, I'll give you all the marbles, you give me all the chocolates. The little simple girl fell for it and she handed all her chocolates to this boy. But the boy was super smart. He kept a few marbles hidden for himself. The girl took the marbles, so happy, Mummy, look what I've got. I'll give them to doll, to Guddi Gudiya. The boy took the chocolates, but he could not sleep at night. He kept on thinking, did she give me all the chocolates? I've got a feeling that she's probably not given me the chocolates. She must have kept some hidden. Because he had kept some hidden, he is thinking she must have done the same. Likewise, we don't look at our own selves. That do we not make mistakes? If we accept the fact that we are only human, we'll find it easier to accept that others are only human. And then if they made a mistake, why make such a big deal out of it? The saints have much to teach us in this regard. They welcome hurts. For them, harboring resentment is out of the question. They're not even familiar with the idea. In fact, they welcome negative behavior. Why? They see it in it an opportunity to grow spiritually. To grow spiritually means to cleanse your heart. And in those hurts is the biggest opportunity to cleanse your heart. Nindak niyare rakhiye angan kuti chhabaye. Kabir ji says, Nit sabun pani bina nirmal kare subhaye. Saint Kabir says, if you wish to cleanse your heart, do one thing. Find a critic. Somebody who's very incisive with their comments, very acrimonious with their statements. Put that person in your house and apply a tilak on his forehead. Which means offer your respect. Sir, please say what you have to say. And you just keep learning to tolerate. Your tolerance will cleanse your heart without soap or water. Nit sabun pani bina nirmal kare subhaye. That is why we hear the story of the saint who used to always be opposed by one person. That person saw the saint as his biggest enemy. But the saint never thought he had an enemy. Now that professed enemy died one day. Guruji's disciples started celebrating. They came and said, Guruji, your biggest enemy is no longer in the world. We are so delighted. Guruji started crying. They say, Arey Guruji, he's been so scandalous about you. Why are you crying? Guruji said, it was because of him that I was progressing. Now that he is dead, I'm really worried. How will I grow spiritually? But this is the spiritual perspective. Of course, it is a journey. In fact, it is easier to give up attachment than it is to give up resentment. Only somebody who's strong can forgive. That is why Mahatma Gandhi said, you need to be very strong to be able to forgive. But without forgiving, you can never fulfill the potential of your own life.